very much. It's really fun. Gosh, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful space.
Yeah.
So thanks to Tony and Kathy for opening up your home so we could have this beautiful space. And again, thanks also to Sandy. And we did have that conversation at the farmers market, and it was probably about 5 weeks ago, something like that. And the food is beautiful. So, and people that are standing, you might want to sit down if you get tired of standing. There's still some cushions here. There's a couple of chairs around. So I'm just suggesting that. So I'll tell you what I had in mind today, and then I wanted to talk for a few minutes, a little while. I put some stuff together, but then I'd really like to have like a discussion and a Q&A and see what's on your minds, and people talk, we can just kind of do an exchange like that. As I suspect that most of the people, the people in this space are not going to vote for Trump. I don't think that's a big issue. So the real thing that we wanted to talk about is why there's been, or at least in my mind, maybe I'm wrong about this, but in my mind there's been such a lack of enthusiasm for Hillary, and just people sort of moaning or groaning or well maybe and whatever. And I think Bernie Sanders put it exactly right. And I think many people supported Bernie, and he said it exactly right. He said, all out for Hillary now, because without her election, we can't continue to build the mass movement that was going while his campaign was underway. Plus, if you've been paying attention to the news and so forth, tremendous movement at Standing Rock in North Dakota within the last few weeks that actually brought the pipeline to a stop. It has been halted, and that's fantastic. That's thousands of people. But I want to make another point. That's also the Obama administration. It wasn't the president himself, but the Department of Justice, the Department of Interior, and the Department of Army together ordered it halted. And that's in addition to the federal judge that did the temporary restraining order. So those three departments don't act without some kind of presidential authority. My point about that is you have a mass movement, you have someone who's sensitive to that kind of mass movement, and you can get something done, right? And that's why I think it matters so much who's in the White House. The other reason it matters so much as to who's in the White House, besides all the other things we could talk about, which I'm going to talk about, is the nominations to the Supreme Court. Okay, Scalia's out, very unexpectedly. I don't know how Ginsburg is still standing, but God bless her. The woman is amazing. She's had pancreatic cancer and I don't know what else, and she's still voting, But it's not going to be forever. She's deep into her 80s. So whoever the next president is not only going to nominate somebody to replace Scalia, but they're going to nominate somebody to replace Ginsburg at least. And there might be another one as well. Well, look, folks, the stakes there are tremendously high. They're tremendously high. And the kinds of decisions that the court makes will affect this country for the next 50 or 60 years. So we have to think about that as well. I think that this country has been sold a bill of goods about Hillary Clinton. And I just want to remind us a little bit about the history. Look, I don't know Hillary Clinton. I've never met the woman. She was here in Santa Cruz in 1991 when Bill was running when he was running for the presidency. And a marvelous woman who was head of the Women's Center at UCSC named Beatriz Flores Lopez arranged for her to come to Santa Cruz. And I don't know, I think I was teaching. I never got to meet her, but she did come by. That was the only time I know of.
She spoke in front of the Darling House.
Oh yes, the Darlings, yes. Okay, good. So what I wanted to say about it is that when, she got her start, I know some things about her early start, but the start in her sort of public political life was when she worked for the Children's Defense Fund in Washington, D.C. It was an organization that was founded by Marian Adelson, who's an African-American woman, civil rights activist, longtime amazing organizer. And Hillary, at that time, advocated for children with disabilities to get health care and health insurance. And later, to create the Children's Health Insurance Program. That's where she started in terms of public life in Washington. When Bill Clinton was elected president, because of that history, he asked her, as First Lady, to depart from the traditional roles of First Lady, right? More in the nature of what Eleanor Roosevelt did, and take a public role. And he put her in charge of trying to get public support and congressional support and so forth for single-payer health care. Do you remember that?
Yep.
You remember when she did that? And do you remember how she got schlonged and smashed? And that's when the right wing really started a campaign against her. In 1996, a man named William Safire, extreme right wing, published an article, and I have to look at my notes if I'm going to remember where it was. But anyway, he published an article in which he accused her. Here, I'll find it. I just want to get it right in my notes. Yeah, okay, it's over here. Sorry. It was January 1996. Something called the Whitewater investigation was undergoing, all right? But I'm not going to go into all about Whitewater, but it was a big thing that was going on at the time. And there was a special prosecutor and so forth. And there was an essay about Hillary Clinton that this man, William Safire, wrote. It was entitled Blizzard of Lies. This is 1996. And accused her of forcing her friends and subordinates into a web of deceit, I'm quoting. He insisted without any apparent evidence that she took bribes, evaded taxes, forced her own attorneys to perjure themselves, bamboozled bank regulators, and was actively involved in criminal enterprises that defrauded the government of millions of dollars. He ended the piece by stating that she, quote, had good reasons to lie. She has a long-time habit of lying, and she has never been called to account for lying herself or in subordinating lying in her aides and friends. The author of this, who wrote a blog, he lives in Portland, Oregon, it's a guy, said, as far as I can tell, this short essay was the birth of the Hillary is liar theme, that it started in 1996 with this. There was never any evidence for this. In fact, every allegation that was made in Safire's piece was disputed. He was discredited. He never apologized. But that idea of Hillary as dishonest, as Hillary as liar, as Hillary as not upfront, has persisted. And it's persisted for 25 years. The press has picked up on it. Everybody has done that. And I think by everybody, I mean this kind of mobilized, and of course, Trump has used it to great effect, right? Which is really ironic. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, so I just want to make that point. This has a history, right? And part of this point is also the enormity of the sexism that she's faced. Come on, folks, let's get real about this. The enormity of the sexism. As soon as she stepped out of that role as traditional First Lady, it started. And her ratings went down, in popularity and so on, all the way back in the 90s. But male candidates can shout, wave their arms, pound the podium, and are judged passionate, powerful, and strong leader. Women are judged very harshly for raising our voices at all. Doesn't she know what the mic is for, said one reporter. Not passionate, it's, why is mom shouting at me? Why am I in trouble? She's scolding, hectoring, shrill, like a fishwife. This is a double standard of a kind of sexism that she's faced. It's all over the place, it's repeated, and it's, the other thing about it is women are always dishonest, especially if they accuse men of sexual violence.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Yes. Is that right?
Amen.
1991, or 91, yes, when Anita Hill came forward, right? What happens? She gets put on trial in accusing Clarence. I was insane, right? But what I'm trying to do is, I'm talking about the double standard. Okay, that's that. next point I wanted to make about this is Hillary is, whatever you think of her politics, and I'm going to say some more about it more substantively, is far and away the most vastly experienced person to serve in this capacity. I mean, it's incredible, right? She's been Secretary of State. She was in the Senate. She knows half the world leaders or more. She's been around the block a few times, right? So that's the other thing. She's not likable. Women have to be likable. That's also a double sexist standard, right? Well, why do we have to be likable? I mean, I like her. I don't have a problem with her, but I don't even know her. She's not likable. Because she's shrill? Because she stepped out of the role of what a woman is supposed to be? Next thing I want to say is, here we have this historic moment of a woman on the brink for the first time in the history of the United States of being elected to the presidency, and all the media can talk about is that she's shrill? And that she's a liar? Come on, folks. Do you understand? You know all this. I'm trying to light a fire under us here. I'm trying to get us to organize. I'm trying to get us to do some things that will actually help guarantee her election. And it's not so much here in California. I think the Democratic Party is very strong in California. But it's not. It's a contest in Ohio. It's a contest in Virginia, perhaps. It's certainly a contest in Florida. You know? And I'll tell you what terrifies me. It terrifies me that it is a contest. Wake up! Donald Trump is what Robert Reich called a fascist. You need to understand this. This isn't some ordinary election with some chump from the Republican Party and some chump from the Democratic Party running a campaign. He is the most dangerous candidate we have had, I don't know since when, in the history of this country. You got to wake up to it. So that's part of why I'm saying you have to light a fire under this. He's so racist. If you listen to his convention speech, Trump I'm talking about, you listen to his convention speech, if you substituted the word Jew for the word immigrant, you would have had Hitler. Wake up. That's what we have to understand. And what's so distressing is that there are so many white people in this country that don't see it.
Why?
It's the big lie. It's the big lie. And he lies, and the bigger the lie, the more they report it, the more they report it, the bigger the lie, and it's like it doesn't get challenged. Gotta wake up to these things. The black vote is solid for Hillary Clinton. Black folks aren't stupid. Why do you think black folks are voting for her? She has a track record in terms of race and racism. Is it radical? Is it really radical? No, I don't think it's really radical. I don't know. She met with the leaders of Black Lives Matter. That's good. But it's at least anti-racist. And in terms of immigration, in terms of other policies. So that's really what I wanted to emphasize this to you today, of how important this is. As Secretary of State, well, before she was Secretary of State, in 1995 in Beijing, during the World Conference on Women, she was part of the U.S. delegation and is famously quoted as having said, "Human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights." That's the first time anybody said that. You would think that that might have been an understanding by the late part of the 20th century, but it wasn't. As Secretary of State, Hillary advanced LGBT rights abroad and enforced stronger anti-discrimination legislation within the State Department, declaring on the global stage that, quote, "gay rights are human rights and human rights are gay rights." Nobody else had said that. Nobody else had had the courage to come out and say that. She took a lot of flack for it, but she did say it. She did what she could to prevent the Ugandan government from passing the most vicious kind of homophobic legislation, which would have led not only to the incarceration, but the potential execution of LGBT folks. So, she also led the effort to pass the first ever UN resolution on LGBT human rights. She launched the Global Equality Fund, ended State Department regulations that denied same-sex couples and their families equal rights, helped implement LGBT-friendly workplace policies, and updated the State Department's policy so that transgender individuals' passports reflected their true gender. These are very progressive, very positive things that she did. She has strongly and consistently advocated equal pay for women workers. She supported Planned Parenthood and pro-choice, which seems to be some kind of revolutionary act these days in the context of American politics. She advocated for paid leave for working mothers and caregivers. I mean maternity leave. While in the Senate, she co-sponsored legislation to improve Medicare, provide broader coverage for it. She's proposed ways to lessen student debt. She's embraced most or all of President Obama's initiatives and programs on the domestic front. She's met with activists from Black Lives Matter, urged police to respect people in all communities of color. Well, that's not enough, especially when did you see the video of what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma the other day? I mean, I don't know. The guy had his hands up. They were way up in the air. And she shot him. That's a white police officer, and she was terrified of him. That's more about the extent of racism in this country, that white police are just terrified. It's crazy. Okay, anyway, I could go on, right? She believes in climate change. Hello? That is not an incidental issue. So when we're looking at the stakes in this election, right, we're looking at the planet. This is about the planet, people. It's not just about the United States. It's not just about local politics or this or that. It's about whether or not we are going to implement policies that actually will reverse, if not reverse, at least contain global warming. She will continue that. Trump thinks he's going to restart the coal industry, going to build pipelines, build more oil. So, I say all of these things because I have felt an enormous frustration with the media and the way in which it's reported things. I understand that. It's really, really frustrating. The first debate is Monday night. We should all watch it. Right? But here's an interesting thing. So the debate is coming, and now the Republicans in Trump's camp are saying, well, lower the bar. He doesn't have much experience with debate. Right. Well, folks, that's the point. Right? Another, Dan Rather. You remember Dan Rather from CBS, one of the most revered reporters in this country? He just wrote another column today that I saw, another op-ed piece, talking about how serious Trump's candidacy is and how terrified he is if he gets elected. I wanted this campaign to be a landslide.
Yes.
Yeah, right? I wanted it to be a landslide as a statement that the people of the United States would reject this kind of xenophobic racism and violence and attitudes toward women.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious me. He's not even conservative. Conservative doesn't even map it. Okay. And then another op-ed columnist who said, I'm forgetting who it was, so I won't look it up in my notes, who said that Trump was the most willfully ignorant man he had ever met. He didn't know where Aleppo was.
That was Gary Johnson.
That said that?
Yeah. Gary Johnson didn't know.
No, but they said that Trump didn't know either.
I think it was David Trump. All you have to do is Google it.
Yeah. So, okay. I hope that we should talk about these issues. We should talk about where your concerns are. In my mind, there is absolutely no doubt about what needs to be done and needs to be done now. any of us who are LGBT folks, who are feminists, who are anti-racist, organize, organize, organize. Now, MoveOn.org. I had suggested that we might pay attention to MoveOn.org because they have thousands of members all over the country, including in these contested states, that they are organizing to go door to door. Door to door matters. You have the internet, you have social media, you have all kinds of things, but it is true that face-to-face contact with people really matters. They also have a program where you can be wherever you are and text people in other states and text them to either get involved or to vote or things like that. So I thought MoveOn.org was really an important organization. The Hillary campaign is, of course, obvious. And the other place is Emily's List, which is a fine organization. It's been in existence for many years, and it specifically targets women who are pro-choice, progressive, running for office. They're trying to flip the Senate. They're very close to being able to do it. You have to realize how close this is. It's not hopeless. It's very, very close. And if we could do that and get Hillary elected, even if we flip the Senate by 1 or 2 votes, we might actually have some prospect of really moving forward in this country in a way that right now, without that kind of support, does not look particularly, let me say, hopeful. So, if you've taken my classes, you know I am not a despairing person. I'm a very optimistic person. And I do believe that it is possible to talk with people and persuade them. I think many voters are very confused. I think they're not sure what to do. And I think they are also been sold a bill of goods about Hillary Clinton that I think it would be very helpful if they had a conversation with somebody who could talk with them about it. If we could elect a woman president of the United States with a progressive agenda, which she has, I think it would be very salutary effect on this country. I think it would be wonderful. What's to lose? Okay, so that's enough. Any Q&A, whatever you want to say, let's open it up and have some discussion.